Good evening, this is the Walpole Zoning Board of Appeals. Tonight is Wednesday, May 4th. It is 7 o'clock. The first case we have for this evening is case number 22-6, 1079 West Street, zoning district rural, residential use. The application is for a special permit under zoning bylaws section 5B2, C2, scheduled use regulations to expand the square footage of an existing accessory in-law suite. So if the applicant wants to come forward, identify yourself and explain what's being proposed. We have plans in front of us.
Good evening. My name is Patrick Shahwan. We added an in-law, and we're trying to actually remove the bedroom from the first floor and add a bedroom on the second floor on top of the in-law. So we're looking to increase, and in the application I put 418 square foot. It's actually, I mismeasured it, it's 461 square foot with the landing in the attic and bathroom. Bedroom and bathroom on the attic, with some closet space, obviously.
Okay, so are you, I see the plot plan, and are you expanding outside of the plot plan? So this is all internal to the house?
It's internal to the house.
Okay. So I've got one drawing. Is that the same drawing everybody has that shows bedroom and bathroom?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
there is a plot plan that was done by C&G Survey Company.
Updated
dated
2020.
2020. There is the applicant's architectural renderings of the addition that were, and then there is the proposed floor plan for the extension. And to kind of orient yourself, on page 2 of 3, the upper right-hand side, there is the existing in-law. So that was the, I believe it was 896 square feet that was
Yeah.
approved by the board in case number 2017, back in 2017. What the applicant is proposing is shown on the next page, where the unfinished attic space is accounting for that additional square footage that he's seeking to include into the already existing in-law unit. And so that floor plan, which is not labeled,
It's hand-drawn, yes.
it's hand-drawn, which is okay from the building commissioner. That's where he's proposing the dimensions of that attic space.
Who's the in-law for?
My parents. They currently live there.
Your parents, is that what you said?
All I have, Patrick, is this. Do people have, do
This should.
you guys have this?
Yes.
What's the purpose for the new office?
So, just office space, because, my dad has a glass company,
Okay.
so there's papers there's no office space for him at the house, so there's papers on the living room table. So, it would give him a little bit more space where he can use one as an office, and upstairs it will be a bedroom, their bedroom upstairs.
I got this, okay. I don't have the red, but I have.
Are you keeping the closets in the office?
We're gonna remove the closet.
Is there anywhere in these plans that you submitted that speaks to that you're planning on removing those closets?
I think I actually wrote it in the, I don't remember, but I believe it says I'm gonna convert that to an office and I'll remove the closet on the first floor.
Okay.
I think in the application, I believe. But yes, we'll have to remove the closet.
Yeah, it doesn't say that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
can I ask Patrick a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, do you have the total square footage of the entire house available?
The entire house should be on the, I gave it to John, which,
Because if it's 33% of the entire house, or 1,000 square feet, I want the numbers that we're looking at.
yeah, it's over 1,000 square
It's
feet.
over
It's less than 33%, but it goes to the, but it's over 1,000 square feet. It's the proposed addition, so to speak, would put the in-law unit above 1,000 square feet.
Okay, by how
That
much?
proposed addition, by 463 square feet.
I think right now we're at almost 900, sorry.
It's 896, that's existing.
plus 40, yeah.
Yeah.
So 896 plus 1418 is 1,314. And looking at the assessor's card,
Mhm.
the total square feet on the assessor's sheet is 3,072.
Mhm.
And that does not include that unfinished attic space, which is 452 square feet.
What was the house?
I'm sorry?
What was the
Um,
house?
On the assessor's card, it was 3,072. And then it said unfinished attic space, 452.
Mhm.
So that adds up to 3,524.
Okay.
So the proposed, what is the percentage of the proposed, if we grant this, total in-law suite? Does it go over the 33%?
It's here before the board as directed from the zoning enforcement officer because it triggers the 1,000 square foot.
Okay, I guess
threshold.
I want the
So
math
that's why
done.
it's before the board.
I want someone to do that math. I want to know if it's 47%. Yes, I understand it's over 1,000. So our bylaw says 33% or 1,000,
Mhm.
whatever's less. So I'm hearing that no one has that figure. I'm really bad tonight with my math. I don't want to do it. Someone else of authority should have presented that to me.
Okay, well,
Can we do it now? Please?
37.
That's what triggers the whole bylaw.
yeah, and that's
Should be
why
first
it's
and-
before us from the zoning enforcement officer because it triggers it with the 1,000 square foot addition. That's why it's reaching us. I didn't understand if whatever one is less.
Right,
That is what the zoning enforcement officer has dictated why it's before the board.
okay, so,
So
Okay.
it's, Judy's right, if, it's over 1,000, so what is it? Is it,
47, is it 35? I just want to know where we're fitting.
What
I know what the bylaw says, and I know the 1,000, over 1,000 triggered it to come to us. But I have follow-up questions regarding why it's even here, but that's beside the, I'll get to that.
Where is it? 37?
Mm.
Unfinished attic. So the unfinished attic space is included in the floor area calculation. So 33% of that would be 1,241 square feet. So it is over 33% of the total floor area for the house, with the addition of the attic space. So the proposal is what, 1,463?
I don't think we reached that. It's 896.
It's
I
less than
understand the trigger.
33%.
I just would have liked to see
Yep.
what the percentage is, because that's what the bylaw asks for. So if I could continue, Mr. Chairman, in our bylaw, and I believe he's doing that, under that section, pre-existing units, D, pre-existing units, number 3, that no pre-existing accessory in-law shall be altered, extended, or changed without first seeking and obtaining a special permit, which is why I guess that they're here,
Mhm.
okay? The total in-law suite now is gonna be 1,348 square feet, correct? And if someone could tell me how many in-law suites have we looked at, or that I've looked at since last September, that have had more than one bedroom. In other words, kitchen, sitting area, bedroom, and bath, which is kind of the definition of an in-law accessory suite, that there's separate sleeping, cooking, and sanitary facilities. Now they're asking us to approve an office space and a bedroom, which kind of deviates from an in-law suite.
Are you directing that at me?
I just put it out there,
Okay.
if somebody wants to speak to it, that's fine. Not to directly.
In terms of number of bedrooms?
Number of rooms in a suite, yes. We don't have a definition. Other communities have definitions of one bedroom, one kitchenette area, one sitting area, if necessary, unless it's shared with the rest of the house, and bathroom facilities.
So, let's do this. The current house, where is the in-law suite? I'm looking at the plan of the house, the first floor plan. Where is the, there is a current in-law suite, right?
Yeah, it's on the first floor,
On the first floor.
or second, yeah, first floor.
So, I just,
It's
just
adjacent
seeing-
to the house.
what's that?
It's adjacent to the house.
Oh, the garage, John.
Okay. Is there a kitchen in the in-law suite?
Yes.
You see it?
But to go back to your previous question in terms of number of bedrooms, it's not specified within the requirements that we have within our bylaws.
Correct. I understand that.
The only thing that's called out is exterior, exterior landings, being no more than 2.
So, what you're trying to do is take the master bedroom that's already there, part of the in-law suite, turn that into an office, and then the area upstairs, that will now be the bedroom for the in-law suite.
Correct.
Got it. Thank you. Okay. So, as far as the expansion, what we're really talking about is the area that was unfinished, that's now being finished. And is that your question, Judy? What's the square footage of that area?
Well, I wanted to make sure the total house, if you include all this new space, and I get it, it triggered the 1,000, but we have a requirement that it's 33% of the total house, or 1,000, correct?
Yeah, but that's why he's here for this
Yes, I
bylaw to go
I
and sense that.
understand that.
That's why it's
That's
triggered.
why. I get that.
Yeah.
it's also
So it
creating.
triggers it on both, in the sense it's over 1,000 and then it is over the
Okay.
33%.
I get that.
Yep.
All right.
This isn't a normal in-law that we'd be dealing with because he already has the in-law approved. Now really what they're trying to do is expand the in-law.
Correct. And that was gonna be my next question, is to, they already have the in-law approved from back in 2017 by a prior board. So why is this not here as a variance? Because it's, clearly, they've already been granted the right or the allowance to have the in-law suite.
Mhm.
And they want to expand it above and beyond what they already have. So it's really not a new application.
It's been determined,
It is a new application because that's how they filed it.
That's how they filed it, okay.
And that's what the building inspector said.
yeah, and that's why, to your point, why is it not a variance? That's a determination of the zoning enforcement officer of why it's here. And again, they're allowed to ask for that relief in terms of size, and that's what the board has to go with, is that's what the determination has been by the zoning enforcement officer,
Yeah.
is that it triggers that threshold.
If we-
Now that I've seen the plans, I think this shouldn't be this complicated. Because you already have the special permit, and now what you're asking for is another special permit just to expand your in-laws, the in-law suite.
Right. The original, special, we're going over the 1,000, that's why we went through this, so.
Right.
That's, so I asked, and that was
Yeah.
the channels that I was.
Okay. And to answer your question as far as an in-law suite, I think what we see here is, we see a living room, a kitchen, an office, and a bedroom. That's what we have for an in-law suite. And bathroom.
That's
Okay.
correct, that's what's existing now.
No,
It's not an office
no,
now.
no, it's not an
No,
office.
not an office now,
It becomes
but-
an office, and they expand, so. So, yeah, as long as a condition we would put is that office is not a bedroom, closets come out, and that's not in the application. It doesn't.
I'm sorry, yeah, I've
Yeah,
done that.
but
I
we-
spoke with,
We can put that as a condition, and also, what's the total number of bedrooms in the house right now?
4.
4. So it's a 4-bedroom home and will remain a 4-bedroom home. Because you've got, do we have a letter from Board of Health on the septic?
Yep, and that's, that addressed your point exactly. The letter's from, April 7th of 2022.
John, did you need to see it?
Yeah, for some reason, I don't have that in my package. Do we have letters from any other boards?
Fire and engineering.
So, from the Health Department has no issues with the application, however, the property is on septic and currently designed for a 4-bedroom home. If a permit is approved, a deed recording this, stating that the home will remain a 4-bedroom home, will be required by the Health Department upon completion of construction. From the Fire Department has reviewed the application pertaining to the above-mentioned case. If the board approves the special permit, the applicant will need to submit plans to the building department for the fire department review of life safety devices. And finally, from the town engineer, they have no comments on the site plan. We suggest that the total square footage of the in-law be stated in the application materials, as it was not clear in the materials available to me on the date of the memorandum. So that's what we're struggling with right now, but I didn't have these in my package. Okay, so, did anybody get the square footage of the expansion?
That's what I must have. Oh, you're just it came to 452 is when I measured it, although we didn't have measurements of the landing. That was
Was the landing would be 461. It's 461, 460 and a half,
Yes.
460 and a half a foot.
John,
Yes.
the lot, we had somebody before us not too long ago that we turned away because it was 1,300. Now, are we,
No, we didn't turn it away.
they didn't get it though.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
They did?
In South Walpole. Yes, they did.
Seems to me, okay.
Was there one that we didn't approve? The large one?
The South Walpole one? I thought
That's
they
the one I said.
returned with a different square foot number, because they created a dining room.
They got rid of the bedroom. Right.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
they
so it
got
was
the
less
bedroom.
than.
So what they did was they had the same
Footage of the house.
design,
Footprint, yeah.
but they called, the dining room was now part of it, part of their regular house. Right.
Yes, so they made the suite
Yeah.
smaller.
So, back to the
What they're
question,
in essence
what is,
doing here
what is the,
It's just a swapping one thing another.
37.
Just-
what's that?
I mean, I don't see why it should be so complicated either.
Right, but, we don't know what's the square footage of the in-law apartment, including the new space?
So it's 800 and, sorry, I'll give you the number right now. What's the number of the in-law? Sorry, I have it in front of me.
96.
Sorry?
896 is your existing in-law that was
Okay,
approved.
so
896 plus 461, is that what you
Yes.
said? Okay.
so we'll be at 1357.
1357, and the entire square footage of the house,
Oh, you know what? Oh, no. On the deck, that's why it makes sense.
Are you looking for gross area or living area?
living area.
So 3,000, I mean, based on the assessors, 3,072 at
Yep.
the moment, without that.
So that's coming out to 44% if we use those numbers. So the in-law suite is 44%. Am I missing something here? Is that what you guys are coming up with?
Yeah.
That was what I was looking for.
3792.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Are you planning on modifying anything outside on the plot plan? Are you changing anything driveway? Nothing?
That's already been done, everything's been done. We're
Okay.
just finishing the attic.
Hey, so Patrick, the building inspector sent this over because it's over, now I see, it's
Yes.
over 33, it's over 1,000 square feet, and it's over 33% of
Correct,
the house.
and according to this, we handle it as a special permit.
Okay. And I think the issue is that it's already existing, and they're basically expanding a in-law.
Yeah, so expanding an in-law to the unfinished attic.
Okay. I'm gonna open it up to the public.
Okay.
Is there anybody from the public here to speak on this? Okay. Okay, did you have some other questions?
Yeah, I just had a couple of comments. I think the size of that suite now is the size of a small apartment in a two-family home. it's not a suite as I consider a suite. To hear that the office is needed for someone's business purpose is concerning to me, that it should be, the accessory in-law suite or apartment should be for living purposes only. I think it's above and beyond the square footage. I understand it got here, and that's why I'm gonna say this, it's too big.
So he has a business in Natick that was an office over there, but whatever papers he uses at home he needs a space to use it, so it's not used for business purposes at all. He has his own business in Natick, but he brings papers home or faxes and stuff like that. So
Okay.
it's just clutter in the house. So there's no clients there, nothing, it's just living space, that's where they live.
Okay, but as I said, 13-something hundred square feet is a small apartment. I don't consider that a suite size. I think it's above and beyond what we define an accessory suite for an in-law purpose of residence is, and I just don't see that it fits. I understand it's space above, it's unfinished attic space, but 44% of the total of your house is a suite for in-law purposes is large.
So one of the other things that the zoning board has to look at is, if somebody else comes in asking for a 44% of their house suite, if we approve this one, every case is different, and that's why you come to the zoning board. But are we saying that, well, we're okay with 44? And I think 44 is pretty big, and you already do have use of this as an in-law suite. It's not like you're being denied use of an in-law suite on the property. Other people, Jane, what's your thoughts?
No. I agree. I think it sort of sets a precedent. I feel badly about it, but I feel the same way that you do, that it flies in the face of the bylaw. And if you do it for one, then somebody else comes and has the very same issue. And well, you did it here, and why can't you do it here? That to me is the greater issue of this. I'm not particularly opposed to moving an office or whatever, but it flies in the face of the bylaw, and I think that is a problem.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So I had to cancel one of the garages on the other side because I can only have 3 garages, and that's unused space. If I decide to finish it, then it's livable space, which I'm probably gonna do for a playroom eventually if I get kids. That would put me way under 33% because it will be an additional 700 square feet or 600 square feet on the other side of the house. So you're looking at it at a percentage of what the house currently exists. And the only issue that we have here is I added a kitchen on the other side. I mean, the lot sits on 2.7 acres. For what the house size it is, it's not a massive house for the area.
Yeah.
But if I finish the basement on the other side, that would easily put me under 33%. I don't need that size. I mean, there's only 3 people living in the house at the moment, but if eventually I'm gonna finish it. They use the other side. That's where they live. So I am gonna finish the basement, but I'll go through, normal channels for that. I just pull a permit and ask for it. That will put me under the 33%. So it is existing space. We already built it up. It's there. I'm not asking to move anything on the outside, or it's just an attic space that I'm gonna close up, and they can actually have a little bit more room in the house on their side, because that's for them. We spent quite a bit of money on that addition. The only issue is the kitchen. I could just easily delete the kitchen. I wouldn't be even having those conversations. But I wanted to go through the bylaw.
Right. And just so you know, even if you did build out the 700 square feet, it's still, you'd still be at 35%. So, but that's not what we have before us. What we have before us is what you're proposing. And they're supposed to be in-law suites, not separate. it's not supposed to be a two-family house.
Right.
Because you're not zoned for that. It's supposed to be an in-law suite, and that's why there's the size restriction. And 44%, 50% would be a two, they'd be equal. And this is not what I don't think it's what the bylaw
So
intended.
there's no in-law suites in Walpole that went over 33%?
Not since I've been on the board approving them,
Okay.
not since I've been. And, they brought up, there was a case where somebody wanted a large one, and we didn't allow it. They came back and they basically expanded the house, sort of what you're saying, expanded the house, and then they shrunk down the in-law suite.
Right.
So, because really, at 44%, you're talking almost equal size to the regular house, and that's not what the bylaw is intended for. Patrick?
No, to that point, I will go back to the 33% thing and the 1,000 square feet, the threshold, so it exceeds both. However, at the end of our requirements, that's where this language comes in, where the applicant is able to come back and seek a special permit, whereas requirements marked with an asterisk, this is just how the bylaw is written, may be altered as a condition of the special permit. So, to the I guess the bylaw's point, I mean, that's why he's able to come here and seek that special permit to have a unit that exceeds the 33% or the 1,000 square foot threshold, is because we have that in our bylaw as something that he can seek as a special permit. It's up to the board whether or not it
Yeah.
fits that, for sure, but
Right.
that is why the whole point.
Right, it's not saying you can't, but what it's saying is an in-law would be okay, in-law is almost automatically okay if it's 1,000 or 1/3.
Mhm.
But this isn't, this is over that. And so it's a higher hurdle that, see what what board members think. Drew, what's your take on it?
So I do feel bad that, I know you've tried to reconfigure, and I think that the office use is amenable, but I think at the same time, going 44% sets a precedent that certainly can be used against the board in future cases, not this case, but I don't think my concern lies so much as what your use intended is, but, future uses, if you have a 50% in-laws or 44% of the household for a future tenant, it could be looked at as a two-family house, and I'm not saying that's the case here, but it certainly concerns me to feel in favor of it.
Okay.
I mean, you already described it, that it's the size of an apartment to stand with, but, that's how you described it. It's a decent size in-law. I'm not trying to add, a huge number, but if my house was a 4,000 square foot house, we wouldn't be running into this issue. That's where I feel kind of cheated, like kind of not treated fairly at this point because of the size of the original house. I know what we're trying to accomplish.
Let me tell you, you're exactly right. And the reason, we ran into this before. It was a much smaller house than what you're talking about, and they wanted to expand it. And we looked at the bylaw and said, okay, in-law, we've been pretty good with in-law suites, but it can't be almost as big as the original house. And that's where a zoning board comes in with the judgment as far as what is good for the neighborhood, what is good for the town in the long run. And, you're exactly right. If you had a 40,000 square foot, or a 4,000 square foot house, you could put on a bigger addition, but you don't. And the people that were here before, they had even, it was much smaller. I forget how big
It was much
it
smaller.
was.
Oh, the
Much-
house
much
was like,
smaller.
the house is 900 square feet,
Yeah.
and they wanted to put the in-law over a
Yeah.
three-car garage,
right.
which
So,
they
So
went
if I
back.
exclude the closets, I have two huge closets that we just put because of the slanted roofs. So just so that the gables of the house. So what you see as closet space, it starts at 0 and finishes at like 2 feet at one side, the one on the left, and the other one is much bigger. The only reason we filed for those and included those is because it's just there. I can exclude the closets, and that will put me at a much lower percentage. So it's not a straight roof, it's a gable, so the usage space of that 460 square feet is not, anything under 5 feet is, we're filing for it as space, but it really is not, it's just a closet space in the
Yeah,
corner.
actually, that now brings, let's see what happens. That brings your livable space of that bedroom down to, it's actually less than 313. It's about 300, or even a
Right.
little less. So hold on, let's see what happens.
Because I included, like, we're gonna do like closets, so that's included in the space from the bottom, not from the wall. So it's not
Okay.
really,
So now, if we take out those closets because they're not livable space, it's now down to 38%. Do people feel better about that, or is it still big? And Tim, you can,
I guess part of my thing is, they came in, they got a in-law suite, and now we're looking to expand it, but the precedent setting definitely bothers me a little bit. I mean, if it was, they came in the first time and they were looking for, and it was 34%, and it was the first application, maybe you roll with it, but 38% is a lot.
okay. Okay. Judy?
I know you've told me not to do this, but
No,
we're
then
not.
don't
suppo-
do it.
But no, we're not supposed to design your plan for you, but I think you need to, I would suggest that you read between the lines, listen to what we've said, go back to the drawing board, change some walls, do something to make your home, your primary home space bigger. You figure it out. I'm not gonna tell you how to do it. I can see what you can do, but that's not my job. Not taking out closets, but the example we gave was they went back and created a dining room for the primary house. Whether they use it for that, I don't know, but, I think, just think about being a little more creative, and I think
It
it's,
is.
then I think it becomes reasonable.
so it is, the garage is already closed. Like,
No-
it's, so I can finish that, so.
No, just,
Right, okay, got it.
I wish I could say more, but I'm not going to, but I think you just need to
So
get a
actually,
little
she's
more
giving you,
creative.
what she's suggesting is you continue the hearing
Mhm.
and come back with, a modified plan of something that would be more acceptable to the zoning board, and I think you can work with Patrick on that. It doesn't delay, it just means that right now, we'll reschedule you, but I think what we're saying is, this plan as proposed from the majority of the board would not pass right now. So if you want to come back with a different plan that reduces the size of the in-law suite, that probably would help you with the board.
Okay. So we'll pick this up next hearing?
Yeah, so what's our next available date?
18th.
Do you think you can have some revised plans by the 18th, or do you want more time?
This month?
Of this month?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay.
That works.
Okay, so, because otherwise, it wouldn't have passed tonight, just,
Right.
I think that's what you're hearing from the board. So, what we'll do is, we'll continue this until the 18th, May 18th, at 7 o'clock here at Town Hall. I hope that gives you time to get some revised plans as far as what will work, and submit those, and then we'll take it up next time.
Okay, perfect.
Motion to continue?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Let's see,
Motion?
yeah, could I have a motion to continue until the 18th at 7?
So moved.
Second.
18th. Thank you, everybody.
Moved by
Aye.
Jane, second by Judy. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, so carried. Okay. Okay, let's take a look at next case. This is case number 22-1, 173 High Plain Street, special permit. This is a continuation to allow a 3-story, 10-unit mixed-use residential development within the business zone district. And one thing I will note, tonight we're missing 2 board members that have sat on this before, Mr. Anderson and Mr. Fitzgerald. So they're not here. They'll be able to Mullen it if they choose, use the Mullen rule. But do be advised that you'll be moving forward with, 2 members missing tonight.
As long as they can use the Mullins if they choose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
like to-
they haven't used, nobody's used the Mullen rule so far, so.
No one's ever used the Mullins rule?
No, on this case.
Oh.
No, we use it occasionally.
You scared me there for a second.
Okay,
All
good
set?
evening.
Thank you. Good evening. Dan Merrickin with Legacy Engineering here on behalf of the applicant. We have submitted to you revised plans, architectural and site plans, and a traffic study as requested by the board. And before we get into the plans, I think what I'd like to do is have Bill Scully, our traffic consultant, come up here and give you a presentation on the traffic report that he prepared.
Okay.
We gotta turn it on. Okay, I'll turn it on. It was working or did?
Was working. You just got to hold it down.
For people that are here to see this case, will you be able to see the screen? So, Mr. Scully, is this the report from Kimley Horn we're talking about, or
It is.
this one here?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Stay when you're ready. Mr. Chair, do you want the traffic engineer to provide his report? Or
Yeah, I'm looking at it here, so, yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
I didn't hear you if you said something, I'm sorry.
I-
Go ahead, I just wanna make sure people that want it, can people in the audience see this if? Yeah, okay, good, okay.
All
Please
right.
go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. My name, for the record, is Bill Scully with Kimley Horn and Associates, and we were retained by the applicant to prepare a traffic assessment of the proposed project. So tonight, I'll just go through a few slides, just in summary. We did submit the report a few weeks ago, so I can try to answer some questions that you might have after I go through everything. So essentially tonight, I'm just gonna, you all know what the project is, but I'll just review what the project is, look at the study area that we examined, go over the estimate of new traffic to be generated or expected to be generated by the project, review the analysis results, and then just outline the recommendations. All the information is in the report in detail, but you may, if you haven't had a chance to read it, then you'll pick up what I present. So again, the project is 10 housing units and 5,300 square feet of commercial space. It replaces a single-family house that's on the property. The housing units are, considered multifamily units, and the access to the project, as you all know, is a single driveway out to High Plain Street, similar to what the existing home has, although the driveway is shifted a bit on the property. So what we examine, and this is, you know, after talking with Dan, talking with Carl, the town engineer, so we included looking at the adjacent intersection of Washington and High Plain, the traffic signal, as well as the site drive. We had heard there were concerns at the signal, so we did a updated traffic count, AM and PM peak period, did the analysis, reviewed crash history at the intersection, and then included it in the analysis. The just as a summary, as you know, as we go through and conduct traffic studies for projects, we tend to follow the guidelines from Mass DOT, and that have become sort of a standard practice in the state. So we projected out 7 years from this year. We collected the volume in March on a weekday. As I said, the morning and the afternoon peak period. Identify the peak hours, the peak 60 minutes within those periods. In looking out 7 years, we identified known projects and try to incorporate them into the analysis, as well as incorporate a background growth. For this project, what we did was we knew about the middle school expansion being developed, so we incorporated that projection of the school in the numbers, included Doopy Street project in there and the 55 Summer Street project. Whatever traffic was projected, let's say in that study, that was projected to come up Washington and go through the High Plain intersection, we incorporated that into the analysis. With the school, granted in the morning, everything tends to happen at the same time. Peak arrivals at the school tend to take place between 7 and 9, when the commuter traffic is also peaking. In the afternoon, that changes, obviously. The peak departure tends to be, you know, between 2 and 4 and not 4 to 6. We counted 4 to 6 at the intersection, but took the projections from the school project of their peak afternoon departure time and brought that into our analysis. So our analysis in the PM is probably a little bit conservative in terms of, especially what's, you know, coming out of the school, but we thought that was probably an appropriate condition to analyze. Other than that, we would have said, well, the school traffic is really minimal in the PM peak hour, and then everyone would have said, well, what about the school project? So we brought it all in. In projecting our site traffic, we use, as some of you may recall, the Institute of Transportation Engineers, the traffic generation models that have been developed based on observing various types of land uses, like residential, like office, like commercial. So we use those models to project traffic. This table summarizes the AM and the peak hour trip generation from the project specific. In the report, I believe we also summarize the daily flows as well. So in the morning peak hour, the proposed project is estimated to generate a total of 13 vehicle trips, with 8 entering the site and 5 exiting. And in the PM peak hour, the 16 total trips, with 6 entering and 10 exiting the site. It's a little bit different than what you all probably see a lot of strictly residential projects, where the peak in the morning, most people are leaving the site and most coming back in the afternoon. Because of the commercial mix, it flips a little bit. In our analysis, we did not remove an estimate of what traffic would be with this single-family house that's there. And in general, that would essentially be a peak, one trip in each of the peak hours. So we didn't delete it, we just added our projected traffic to the conditions that we counted and/or projected for 2029 on High Plain Street. So as you go through the analysis, we look at the operation of the intersection, at the signal, we look at the ability of traffic to enter and exit the site using standard capacity analysis and level of service analysis techniques. And as I mentioned, we also looked at the crash history at the intersection of High Plain Street and Washington Street. And when we look at the crash history, we then compare it to Mass DOT averages in the district. And in terms of the third bullet, the crash analysis showed that the current experience, looking at data the last 3-4 years, we see that the average crash rate is well below the DOT average for a signal in this district. So it doesn't point to any particular problem. The High Plain Washington Street intersection during the peak hours currently is operating at acceptable levels of service. Yes, in the morning you get, there's a lot of traffic going through the commuter peak times, going through the intersection, but in terms of overall delay, it's not bad at all, and it meets acceptable level of service C conditions at that intersection. What we see as we go forward, in particular, adding in the school traffic, is where we start to see degradation at the intersection. Mostly in the morning, it's eastbound left turn onto Washington Street and a southbound right turn out of Washington Street on High Plain Street. And it's similar in the PM peak, although the morning peak is a lot worse. In terms of much higher generation of new traffic related to the school during the morning peak hour. That's consistent with what the school's traffic engineer had come up with in their study. So we've got their study from about a year or so ago, and pretty consistent in terms of what the conditions will be once the school expansion is in place. Adding in our project traffic has virtually no impact on those particular problem movements, and essentially no impact on the intersection in terms of delay and overall operating conditions. And then also at the site drive, exiting the site, again, it's going to be moderate to average delays, level of service C, exiting the site, easily to get in, level of service A. So we have the ability to go in and out safely. The site distance criteria is satisfied. We've got well more than 400 feet in both directions. You can see the signal operation very easily. Approaching the site drive in both directions, highly visible. And while the posted speed's 35 miles an hour, we meet the site distances for 40, 45 miles an hour out there. So in terms of recommendations, I mean, it is, in essence, a relatively small generator of traffic. Certainly more than the single-family home that's out there, but it is a low generator. However, we did say, well, this is a driveway. You have commercial use as well as residential use. So stripe the driveway with a stop bar, stop sign control. Make sure when the sidewalks are reconstructed along the frontage of the site that the ADA compliant ramps are in place, and also maintain the good visibility that the site has with low-lying vegetation, any special site signage, just have it set back. And I think that's it. So I'd be happy to answer questions if I can.
I've got a few right off the start here. Did you say what's the rating for the High Plain and Washington Street intersection?
So currently it's level service C overall,
Okay.
and in the future, it's overall it will end up at level service D and C D in the morning, C in the afternoon, in the morning peak hour, in the future no build and the future build. Where particular movements that I mentioned, those will have some issues with the turn on to Washington Street from, away from our site, or going back onto Washington Street. High Plain Street with the right turn. But overall, it'll stay at D and C.
And right now it's a C.
Correct.
And what about a right turn only coming out of the property?
Right turn.
Because somebody, if they're trying to make a left-hand turn, they have to, cross in front of people that have just gone through the intersection and moving up High Plain Street. Thoughts on that?
I don't think it needs a right turn only. We did look at queues so that on average, the driveway won't be blocked. The driveways will be shifted to the east about 30 to 50 feet. Right now, you can come out of this driveway or adjacent driveways and make a left turn. They're not restricted. If there is, let's say, on a red light and traffic is stopped, they're gonna wait on the site drive. Not everyone is taking a left, it's about split 50-50. And the potential problem that you have if you start restricting movements is what happens is the person takes a right, goes up to Victoria, loops around and comes out. So you just shift a problem, not solve a problem.
Do the board members have questions on traffic for this?
Yes.
Go ahead, Drew.
Are there any modifications that the school's currently proposing for the intersection, to your knowledge?
As far as I can tell, they haven't said or publicized. I've checked with the school department where they are in it, and at least the people I talk to aren't aware of any actions. The traffic study done for the school essentially ended, like the last sentence basically says, the school team will continue to work with the town to look at mitigation and improvements, but I am not aware, I haven't seen anything further from them on that.
Okay. I believe on one of your slides, you said there was an anticipated amount of 5 vehicles exiting the property in the AM peak hour. Does that sound correct?
Yeah, that's a question.
So if I added correctly, there's 18 bedrooms, no home offices, so, but only 5 vehicles is calculated to leave the property.
There's 10 units of housing and 5,300 square feet of commercial space.
Right.
So we assumed commercial type service, small office use for that 5,300 square feet. So the numbers of 8 and 5, let's say in the morning, most of the entry is going to be related to the commercial, and most of the
I
exiting.
think my concern is more with the exiting, because you're exiting into what is now a split lane, so you have left turn only or straight or right. And I guess that's where I see.
On High Plain Street.
Correct, unless there's another exit that I didn't see on the plans.
Yeah.
There's five vehicle counts that you're presuming for your traffic study, but out of 10 units, 18 bedrooms, all the schools are to the left, no home offices, only 5 vehicles are gonna leave that premises off of your calculations?
Based on the models that we use to forecast traffic, yes.
Okay.
You've got the other in the peak hour. I mean, not everyone leaves at in the same peak 60 minutes.
Right.
So you're right. There may be people who head to work at 7 a.m., but the person who runs down to the school and drops someone off heads out at 8:05.
Your peak hours were, sorry again?
7 to 9, 4 to 6 was when we did the counts, and then we identified the peak based on our data. Give me a minute. We identified, based on the data we collected, 7:15 to 8:15 in the morning was the peak 60 minutes, and in the afternoon, 4:30 to 5:30.
So that peak time, you're anticipating 7:15 to 8:15 of people who may be on the commercial first floor entering? Is that where you're coming up with that number of 8? So that business would be mainly open from 7:15 to 8:15, starting to open their business? Or is that
Yes.
based off of the residents?
Okay, so those times are based on the count that we did at Washington Street and High Plain Street. So we counted traffic between 7 AM and 9 AM, and then what we do is we summarize all that data by 15-minute intervals and look at what's the peak 60 minutes within that 7 to 9 time period, and then select the peak, whatever it is. Our peak on the site could be 7:30 to 8:30. But what we're gonna do is use the peak volume that we counted as our starting point, and then we're gonna project traffic. The model's based on traffic that would be generated during the adjacent street peak. So it could be off by 15 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever, but we're taking peak on the road, peak on the site, adding them together, not worried about, you know, do the times align perfectly, you know?
Okay.
It may be a little bit less, you know?
And you said the majority of your calculations are based off of traffic studies done for the school, for Doopy Street?
That was as we,
Summer
in
Street?
55 Summer Street.
Okay.
And that was for the future development, the
Right.
future condition. So we took all those studies, whatever they projected from those studies out through this area, those got incorporated into our
Out
analysis.
of those 3 studies, what was the most relevant time frame, or what was the most recent time frame that one of those was actually to the date of this project being proposed? Doopy Street?
What do you mean?
I guess, so Doopy
mean-
Street is probably the most relevant.
You mean in, you know, recent
Right, correct.
approval?
Yeah, yeah.
Or not approval? Yes. So Doopy Street's probably the most recent. 55 Summer was, I don't know, within the last 2 years, I think, or so. The school is in process.
Mhm.
So we knew all of them. And when we looked at 55 Summer, if we didn't see any traffic coming up Washington Street, then we probably would have just assumed it to be in the background growth. Because we added background growth of 1% per year for 7 years,
Okay.
besides these site-specific projects.
Thank you.
Other board members? You have something, Judy?
I did. I'm looking at the layout here, Dan, and am I correct in seeing that your driveway comes out just about at the hashed lines in the, on 27 now?
Let me
Where-
throw up the plan.
If you could, thank you. I know I'm looking at C4, but just because I could see it there. I should have brought my driving glasses to see your plan. I have a hard time reading this one, so I brought my handy, scope here.
So the driveway, the exit lane of the driveway
Yeah,
is where it's basically a single lane on High Plain Street. Just when you get to the left of the exit lane is when it starts to diverge from one lane into 2 lanes.
okay. So a left turn from the property is on a wing and a prayer to either get in the left lane because they want to take a left turn onto Washington Street, or shoot across to go straight or right onto Washington.
I mean, I
Yes.
sat at the existing driveway and made that turn a couple of times, and it was quite easy to do.
Okay.
But, yeah, and we have indicated on the plan a no left turn sign, as Bill indicated. he doesn't think it's necessary. I don't really think it's necessary, but we're happy to do it if that's something the
I know,
board
I
wants.
was just wondering where you were, because it was hard for me to see on that plan.
Yep.
Okay. And this might be jumping ahead, but looking at the fire truck plan,
That is jumping ahead.
just jumping ahead, okay, sorry.
That's
I
But-
figured
because
I'd
we are
get
gonna
them while I had them
Yeah,
at the
no, we're
state.
gonna come,
Okay,
because there was a meeting, did you meet with the fire department?
I did,
Okay,
yes,
so
okay.
That's,
Jump-
that's,
It had to do with traffic, but I'll hold it.
well, we'll
Okay.
talk about fire trucks separately. I want to open it up to any of the residents or neighbors on this, on traffic. You heard the traffic report that's been submitted to the town. Do any neighbors have any questions or comments about what you heard about traffic?
Question.
Sure.
Does that include?
Can you just identify yourself for the record?
Tim Curtin, I live at 7 Lorraine Road, around the corner. Does that traffic plan include Huntington Estates, all the building down there, those units?
Good
When
question.
they're finished?
Good question. Does that include the old Walpole Woodworkers site, Pennington Estates,
We just-
Pennington Crossing?
I mean, some of that was already built, not, 2 buildings, I think, are occupied for our count data, so it would have been in there. And then, as I said, we added 1% per year, so that we included that and considered it as part of the background growth.
And as far as the traffic plan, I don't think the issue with Washington at High Plains so much as the traffic getting up to Old Post Road is backed up before Old Post all the way out to Route 1. And it's not just the peak hour times, weekends is just as bad. Trying to come out of the side streets already, you make the 10 cars, 15 cars coming one way, and then comes the traffic up from Washington Street. And people are holding up traffic down to this new proposed 10-unit site. I think it's just gonna add more. And with the Pennington and the other sites going on, I feel this is death by 1,000 paper cuts. How much traffic are we gonna put on High Plains? When the next one comes for another 10 units, the single-family dwelling, we should keep it that way. I don't know if that's.
Well, the reason why we're here is because it's actually zoned for business, and, you know, that's why we're here. Otherwise, it'd just be a single-family, single-family dwelling. And as far as, you know, I don't wanna speak to the traffic engineer, but when you look at all the traffic that goes through that intersection, the reality is 10 more units, is that going to be detrimental or even noticeable? And I think it's minimal. It really, that's the reality. The issue is we want to make sure there's safe site distance for entering and exiting the site. It has that. We want to make sure that you can safely turn in and out without getting whacked by somebody going 45 miles an hour. And, you know, it seems as if, you know, at least according to the traffic engineer, they're able to meet those things. Okay. I hear your point about the 1,000 cuts.
That's all,
That's-
there's busy traffic there all times of day, that's all.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to.
Yes, sir. Just
Hi,
please.
Mark, I live in Crosby. I'd like to ask the engineer, what methodology used
I don't know
to
what
Can,
you're saying.
I can't hear you.
Can you go
what
to my,
methodology used to come up with 5 exit, because I have a car, I have at least 2 exit in the morning, 2 exits, because I have to drop off my daughter, coming back, go to work, just me alone. To find out how it's supposed to work. Is a 30 parking lot there, 20 for the residential, 10 for the commercial. It is going to be a cafe there, so kind of how we come up with this Starbucks there, just have 1 car per second, so kind of how we come up with 5 exits.
So, five exits?
Yeah, you
So,
said
Mr.
5 exits.
Mr. Delaney, he already asked that question, and the answer is they use formulas. And I might agree with you that, you know, it
Formula,
doesn't make sense, but,
I'm a guy that works with numbers. I'm just saying, let's count. I have 2 exits, 2 entries, 1 person. So there are 10 houses there. Plus, I don't know what's going to be cafe, office spaces, I don't know what's going to be there. So I suppose there are going to be 5 exits in total within a 2-hour period. Let's be practice, you all drive the car, right? You have to drive in the morning, you have to drive in the afternoon. At least 1 exit per person. Let's say 1 per family. There are 10 rentals, so I suppose there are 5 exits, because these guys paid to lower the number.
So I think he's paid to do a traffic study, and he's using formulas that are accepted.
His interest is to lower the number. He's paid from these guys, the ones who want the project to move on.
Right.
Because I'm saying that, tell me on earth how is it possible that there are 20 houses, there are going to be 5 exits within 2 hours. And on top of that, there are lines above the lines. Here's Google Earth. Here you go, everyone can go online. Here's the house. So here's the 173 High Plains Street, correct?
Yep, and where's it split?
See the lines here where it splits? Here. The guys here cannot take a left turn if you want, because it comes from 1 here to 2. So here's the current drive. Everyone can use Google Earth. Everyone can go and take pictures here.
Yep.
These guys are suggesting that the driveway is going to come here. So how they're going to come here when this here is triple line?
Okay.
There are line above that. You can go and take pictures. If they move it up the driveway to go out, here it is this. You have engineers can go and take a look
So-
at this one.
Yep, so I do see what, and that's what they're showing on their plan, just so,
No, they're saying that if you can take a left turn, you are not allowed to take a left turn here. See here the double lines?
Right.
There's no way you can take a left turn. And they're saying to come out here, not here. It used to be the
that's the
old
existing,
driveway.
yep.
The old driveway is okay. They're saying to take a left turn here. That is not okay. And just FYI, that person is a liar. Sorry about that, but he's a liar. There is no way there are 5 exits within 2 hours.
I think he said 7:15
So-
to 8:00,
At least
which is
for
1 hour.
one person, for one family, you have at least 1 per family. There are 10 families, plus commercial. They're going, if you have a Dunkin' Donuts there, do you think there are going to be 5 exits per hour? It's going to be 5 exits per second. And then nobody's going to grant that there's not going to be a Dunkin' Donuts there. Or Starbucks, I don't know, or CVS.
Okay. Let's talk about,
We have another question
that,
here.
oh, okay,
I
yep.
have a question. I would like to know when the study was done, the days. So you can give me the days and the study was done.
So the traffic count that we did, don't you get up on the mic?
Please do, just so you're on TV.
So the traffic count was conducted in March, I think March 16th.
Wednesday, March 16th.
So you
And then
can-
we did the analysis right after that and submitted the report dated April.
So you count an analysis or study just for 1 day?
What-
Yes,
Yes?
for the intersection, correct. A Wednesday, Thursday typically are your good weekdays to do traffic counts. We also had the historical data from the Dupy Street project up the street on High Plains Street. And we had historical data as well from the school study.
So, yes,
Just one question
Just-
with regard to the traffic studies.
please identify yourself and come
East
speak.
Monte, 180 High Plains Street. The assumption, assuming 5 peak hour trips, is based on a Wednesday and Thursday. Did you also run that for the high traffic times on the weekends, which have consistently higher traffic on High Plains? This is a bit of a compound question, so I apologize. That was one question. The second question is, I believe, if I heard you correctly, you assumed a small professional commercial use. But I last heard that there were no promises for the use on the first floor. So did you also run an analysis as Starbucks goes in there or a bowling alley goes in there, which was mentioned by the project applicant at the last hearing, and how does that affect the traffic? And then finally, what if any measures have you considered to prevent people exiting property from using the abutters and residents' driveways to turn around? And I guess those are the three questions right now. And maybe at the end, I can kind of put together my thoughts, if that's okay.
Sure. Okay. Do you want to answer those three?
Okay, so the last one, I don't anticipate, why would anyone from our site use the abutting driveways to turn around? If some,
If it's left
Hey,
turn
hey,
only,
no,
Everything-
yeah, but,
Ma'am,
okay.
ma'am, everything through the board, you know, if you have a question,
I'm sorry, I'm
he's
just
gonna answer
clarifying
it.
the question. So
Okay.
the why left only,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, is if there's a no left turn only sign, a person seeking, as was mentioned earlier today, is gonna take a right, and then start using driveways or other streets to turn around, and so I was asking, what if any mitigation measures, if any, were thought about in this traffic study?
Okay, so the traffic study assumed no restriction of turns coming in and out of the driveway. And if you did it at all, maybe it's just a peak hour, but I don't recommend it. And somewhat related to your comment, because if you just force people to take a right, then they're gonna take a left in reverse direction up the street, so it doesn't do anything. Probably causes more issues. Okay, so the forecast of traffic of the project, it's a weekday peak estimate of traffic. It's not, we didn't do a Saturday analysis. And it's based on models that we've developed over the last, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 years of observing similar land uses and develop these models to help us understand how many trips will be generated by a new use. So the model is a peak estimate, an estimate of traffic during the adjacent street's typical peak hour of traffic. And usually a residential and office type of use, you would look at that weekday morning and afternoon. And I think, so we did not do a Saturday analysis out there, which is not typical for these kinds of uses. We didn't do an analysis assuming like a Starbucks or a bowling alley. I didn't even know if you could do a bowling alley there, but Starbucks is right up the street. Dunkin' Donuts is up the street. They're not going to be at this location. It at least in my mind, it might be a business zone, but it tends to be a neighborhood business zone. We did look at other potential uses and like you might have hairdressing shop, you might have, you might have some service related uses, not just small office. But when we looked at the numbers, it all either was similar or the small office numbers ended up being, you only have 5,300 square feet. So it's only going to be 2 to 3 shops at most, unless one person, takes the whole 5,300. So we felt that we assumed a representative use that would at least give us a sense of traffic in and out of there. Did I answer all your questions? I think I
Yes,
did.
sir, thank you.
Okay. Let's, while we're talking about traffic, let's take a look at the line in the street. So, right out in front of the driveway is this wide double line. It's shown in the plans. This is on, I can see it on C3.
Crosshatch.
The crosshatch. So, with that crosshatch, can somebody safely make a turn across that crosshatch? Coming out.
So one, we
What is-
didn't put it in the report, but what we would
Any one of these has it, see, it's here.
recommend that we do is we just extend the double yellow, just make a modification to this end, where you've run this and adjust the taper so that the vehicles would be crossing over double yellow and not the chevron striping.
Okay, but that's not your choice to make.
No, it's not.
Right, and so we have that there right now. We have the crosshatch.
Correct.
So would that be safe for somebody to pull out and cross the crosshatch?
It won't be any more unsafe if it was just the double yellow center line there. Technically, if you go by the manual on traffic control devices, the markings, that technically, the way that's striped, then the person shouldn't take a left turn across it,
Okay.
but they're going to. But like what we would normally do, so in terms of like the left turn lane there, we know that the queue on the left turn lane going on to Washington Street doesn't end up being really a long queue for the left turn lane and isn't going to block the drive. So what I would suggest is we just modify that taper. You're not modifying the left turn lane, essentially. You're modifying the
So
taper.
you're saying we modify it, but that's not yours to modify? And I
No,
don't mean you
no.
personally,
Correct,
meaning the
correct.
applicant. This is
Correct.
what we're dealing with.
So the town,
You could put a condition in that says either a no left turn sign or the applicant obtains the approval of the roadway commissioners to modify the hatch striping in front of the driveway. And the roadway
So
commissioners of the select board.
Left, yeah, or actually, I'm guessing Route 27 is probably a state road.
It's local
no, it's a
jurisdiction.
local.
On Route 27 it is?
Yeah, it's local jurisdiction, control of Walpole.
Okay, so, yeah. But as of right now, there's a reason why those hash lines are there, because you're not supposed to be turning at that point.
And we do have a no left turn sign proposed on the plan, so you could, you could give the applicant the opportunity to get the paint markings in the street changed if the roadway commissioners allowed it.
Okay. But of course.
In
we're looking-
the two homes that are there now,
Yeah, they cross it.
these guys across.
Yeah.
I get the striping that's there now is based on someone calculated how much length do we want for the Washington Street left turn lane. So they need to find that length, and then you make the taper to get that length.
But as far as the other houses there, they're there, we're talking about what's being proposed. So I don't think that's a fair comparison. Those houses are already there, we're talking about something new that's being proposed.
Yeah, so, again, happy with the sign, happy with, the ability to go see the roadway commissioners and get the striping changed if they allow it.
Okay.
Either way.
Okay, okay, that's a good point that was brought up by the neighbor. So, anybody else have questions or comments on traffic? Yes, sir. Oh, yes, ma'am.
Hi,
Yeah.
Joyce, I live on Burns Ave. I just have a question, I'm just a little confused.
Can you just come up?
Yeah, sure.
You,
I'm a little confused. Joyce Sheen, I'm on Burns Ave, the other side of town. So, on that map, it said stop sign, something, and left turn, no left turn. So is the proposal not to allow them to have left turn? I got confused as to where that was.
so that's what the applicant is showing, that there's a no left turn sign there. The traffic engineer said he didn't see it as necessary, but they have it on there.
Okay, goes back to this woman's message about people are gonna take the right and then take a left into their driveway and then turn around. I mean, I would do that, and I think majority of people absolutely would. No, I wouldn't, I bet you that, I wouldn't take, I do it at Stop and Shop all the time, that's the only reason why I mentioned it. But what-
That was my next question, where people are going to turn left?
Okay. Please identify yourself, come up to the microphone, you're not gonna just speak out. And somebody has a question behind you, he had his hand up.
Hi, my name is Kevin.
Just come to the microphone, please, so everybody can hear you.
Everybody. So my name is Kenneth, and I live in the property at 183 High Plains Street, so the property directly to the right So just to introduce myself, I recently purchased that property in December. So this is the first hearing I've actually been to in regards to this development. And I just had 2 points to make. So I'm not super against our developer friends here, but my issue is in regards to the traffic. So I did a bunch of yard work in the morning, and I noticed that, well, how many of you use Amazon? Yeah. So I use Amazon every single day. And my Amazon driver usually stops right over here. And I've seen consistently at least 5 or 6 cars drive around the Amazon driver at like 30 miles per hour, smacking over there. And we also have a bunch of issues when we have a lot of residents drive into my neighbor Eve's driveway and out. And because she just recently redid her driveway, and I'm actually trying to do my driveway too. So those are my main 2 concerns. If we have 10 more units there, assuming that they're all 20 young urban professionals, they're all using Amazon, if they're getting an Amazon package every other day, I'm guessing another 10 Amazon trucks right there on that road. Again, like, I'm just hoping if there's like a solution you guys are proposing so that we don't have an Amazon truck right over there, or a UPS truck, FedEx truck, I don't really care. So it doesn't push all the traffic around to the opposite lane. I know that's illegal, people do it. Heck, I'll do it if there's an Amazon truck in the way, but those are just my 2 concerns.
So, would, one of the questions, should there be parking, and we know this from other developments in town, for delivery truck, on site, so they can come off of Route 27 High Plains Street, and then, so that they don't park out there? So would that resolve your concern?
I mean, would the Amazon truck drivers actually even use that at their disposal? I'm looking at them, they're on their phones all day, like, they don't really care. They're earning $18 an hour. Why would they respect our laws?
Okay. Well,
I'm sorry.
okay, okay,
That's just my 2 concerns.
okay, noted. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Did you have you had something you wanted to say?
So my question is, I don't need the microphone, I'm really loud.
No, you need, people on TV need to hear you.
My question is, if they cannot turn left, so where are they going to turn? They're going to go in the other streets to turn around and may inconvenience all the neighbors, back up all the traffic, or go too close to Old Post Road and turn there? That will be a nightmare with the school system, where I can show you the picture how they back up from Old Post Road all the way here where the development is, because I have to drop my girls every day. So that is a major concern. And I agree, on Saturdays, all these is back up because all the people coming with the sports. We had a lot of sport, Walpole is well known for the sports, so all the traffic will back up in High Plains every Saturday. And it takes, I don't know for people, but people who have family, we are driving at least, I get out to high school once, exits only, Old Post Road, back and go to work. It's 3 exits. I don't count my husband who has another car. Just one house, and we have 2 houses, so it's about 5 exits and one between 7:15 and 9:15 every single day on Friday, so from Monday to Friday. Saturday is a little more crazy because it's back and forth, pick it up, drop it off kids in the sports. So it's a lot in and out, in and out. Yeah, I no count the people who come to visit my family, grandparents, everybody to come. So it's a lot in and out in the exit. So it's something that people have to count. It's not just the studies. The studies are beautiful, are the best. I am an epidemiologist. I know about studies, that is my background. So it's beautiful. But really, it's not the reality that what is the life in the town. The town is well known to be a family town where we had to drive around. We call us as a soccer mother driving like crazy. I know a lot of people here that drive all day. And we are, I'm sorry, I heard the police doesn't listen to me, but we make a lot of mistakes when we are driving, because if I had to pick up my daughter, I don't care if it's a left side, no left side, I will do it if I need to go.
You're on TV.
I know, but it's the truth. I know, but it's the truth. When you have to drive and you are running like 5 minutes, I need to make it, or it's not easy, okay? So that's the reality. The reality is not the study what they're showing. So the reality is more. And if we are not count 482, I think, the one student from the Johnson Middle School, they are coming. So it's more families coming in and in and in, because that is the capacity in the building. And we are not count the teachers. They're coming also to town to teach in the new middle school. So it's more people coming. It's not just what we have now. We had a big project for the town, and it's wonderful because that is amazing for the families, but it's more students, more teachers, more people coming every day. So we had to, 1% really know what is the reality in the growing of the town at this moment. So we need to think about it a lot, how much the traffic and is going to be. And the safety is a big concern when people, we know how fast people go through the traffic line in the intersection. Nobody stop. When I driving, I had to look twice before, as soon as the traffic line change, I look 3 times, 4 times before I cross it, because I have seen a lot of car accidents. So thank you.
So your point is the reality of the numbers, five exits, and again, Mr. Delaney brought this up, you're saying that just doesn't
That's
matter.
not the reality, and you can ask all the mothers in the town. I had a lot of just talking with one, my neighbor there, she said, she has another 2 daughters, and that is not reality. The reality is more than that. But that is what the study does, but I know it's not reality. The reality is something else.
I have another follow-up, so just to clarify something.
Just come to the microphone, please.
Yes, so everyone knows the reality, there is no for discussion, but in reality, this guy should have done a comparison analysis with another 10-unit condominium with commercial stores to calculate the traffic, because I know how they calculate in March 16 in the High Plain Street, where right now nobody lives in that house. In reality, they should have gone to a street when there are a condominium with 10 units plus commercial space and count all the cars. That should be the real traffic analysis. You cannot compare apples to oranges. The guy was sitting on the High Plain Street in front of a house and nobody lives there to count how many people are going in and out. And the reality is that you can go anywhere, 5 exit within 2 hours timeline for 10 units plus commercial is very underestimated numbers. It's not even moderate. So you have moderate, extreme. This is like, I have 1 car. I sold the other car because I work from home. I make at least 2 exits per morning to drop off, pick up.
Okay.
Not 10 units. And also I have another question. Is the engineer liable if something happens to my daughter that waits for the bus every morning there?
No.
This guy's not?
No.
Who is liable if something happens tomorrow?
Whoever
All these guys
so
that Amazon cars, when they when they stop here, the guy will come fast, this way he's going to hit me here. Every morning I stay with my daughter here.
Okay.
So he's going to be liable if someone goes to hit me.
whoever hit you.
Oh, plus these guys, for sure.
Okay. No, I mean, I'm not gonna say that.
And I know that
Okay.
the case that I
Let's talk about fire department. Or did you have anything else you wanted to talk about traffic?
No.
So there's some definitely concerns about traffic still.
Well, I just want to, I think the board understands the 5 is during the peak 60-minute period. It's not the entire morning, it's not the entire day. And the projections, which is standard practice, is based on decades and decades of studies at similar uses across the country for these different types of activities. That's how they come up with these projections. So this is standard practice for traffic studies.
Yeah,
And
the
you know
board
that.
has looked at lots of traffic studies. We understand
You know.
traffic studies.
So.
And we also know Mr. Scully, he's been before us before.
So what I want to do just is talk about the site plan. We submitted a revised site plan to you and a revised architectural plans addressing the various comments that we had received from the board and other town departments. And I won't go into it in gory detail, but we did update the architectural plans a little bit to provide the calculation of the gross floor area for the commercial space versus the residential space, and we demonstrated that we meet that requirement. We added a bunch of details and notes, snow storage. We provided a landscape plan done by a registered landscape architect. But the one kind of lingering issue that we have outstanding is the fire department still has some reservations about the ability specifically of an ambulance to turn around in the parking lot. So I think as you'll recall, we have designated a space in the corner for delivery vehicles like Amazon trucks to park on site, not out in the street. And we provided some turning movement plans to the town that would demonstrate that an ambulance could use that area to turn around. The fire department continued to express reservations, so Mr. Duchesne and I met with them yesterday to talk over options. And the applicant's willing to entertain a reduction in unit count to either 9 or 8. And what that does to us, and I'll explain the difference in a minute, what that does is that allows us to eliminate a couple of parking spaces, anywhere from 2 to 4. And if I do that, I can free up some more space for the fire department to use for an ambulance to turn around, kind of a dedicated fire lane area. And we reviewed that with the deputy chief, and that seemed acceptable to him. So the two options the applicant's willing to consider are a 9-unit with the 9th unit being a 1-bedroom affordable unit. So in that scenario, we could eliminate 2 parking spaces to basically free up some space for the fire department. The size of the building would basically be the same footprint-wise.
So you'll still have the size of the building, so you're gonna have larger apartments, but the size of the building's still gonna be,
On one of the floors, there could be larger apartments, yeah. Because we're reducing one, there's 5 on each floor, right? So one floor would be as currently proposed, and the other one would go to 4.
okay, no, that's what you're hoping for, you know.
The second option is an 8-unit, which would be no affordables, so 8 2-bedroom units. That would allow us to reduce the footprint of the building by probably 14 or 15% or so. Basically, because the apartments are stacked, right, if we take out 2 units, we could take out an entire stack. We reduce the size of the commercial space, we reduce the footprint of the building accordingly. We basically end up knocking out one of the corners of the building. That frees up some more green space, maybe for an outside patio or just landscaping or something like that. And that would allow us to eliminate 4 parking spaces, which would free up even more room for the fire department to maneuver. So, you know, without really getting into gory detail on what we made for plan revisions, those are the 2 scenarios we'd like to discuss with the board. And if the board prefers one or the other, or gives us an indication that those options are desirable, the applicant would go off and have us redesign the site plan and the architectural plans to reflect that.
So I think it's a step in the right direction. One of the concerns is the scale of the structure, and particularly the fact that it backs up and is surrounded by residential across, residential behind, and it's a large building with large parking area. So it's a step in the right direction. The other thing is, the zoning board could say, well, yeah, you can build this large building, but it's gonna be all commercial. And not saying that's what is good for the town, but I don't think it's what you guys want. So I think it's reasonable that you scale back, you know, as much as possible on this. You know, as far as the residential, and make it so that it fits the character of the neighborhood better than it is right now. And if you go to 8 units, that's a step in the right direction, so.
Well, I mean, I just have to let the board know 8 is the bottom line for the applicant.
Well, you know, you could have 3 stories of commercial and
Agreed.
have none. So let's be clear that there's no bottom line here. The bottom line is what you're allowed to do. And what you're allowed to do is build 3 stories of commercial. And, you know, to say, this is what we're gonna do, well, no, there's a discussion here with the zoning board.
And the applicants made some significant concessions
Right.
on the proposal, so, you know,
And what
to your point,
Think it would, if we said to you, well, the bottom line is this. That's not the way this board operates, and we don't expect people to come in before the board and say, the bottom line is this. We're discussing what can be done that's gonna make this project safe for the people that would live there or work there, and what's gonna be good for the people that are already living there and live throughout the town of Walpole. That's what this is about. So, you know, this idea that you're gonna say that you're gonna have eight units there, the zoning board can say, well, no, you're gonna have all commercial.
you could.
Right.
And I would say to you what I said to you before, which is, given the range of uses that are allowed by right, I think it would be a shame to see this go all commercial. I think that this proposal is the best thing, given the range of potential uses on this site in a business zone. This is the best proposal for the neighborhood. And the zoning board you could condition it in any number of ways that the applicant finds unacceptable. And what happens then is you basically force the applicant to go 100% commercial.
Right.
And I don't want to be in a position, personally, where I'm up in front of the planning board proposing a restaurant or something, and they're saying why, and the neighbors are really upset saying why, and, you know, we're gonna say, well, we wanted to do something different, but, you know, it wasn't acceptable. So I'm just telling you that the applicant's done the math, and if you go below 8, it makes more sense to go 100% commercial.
Well, you know, this was a single-family home, you know, and now trying to put 10 units, or now down to maybe 8 units. And, you know, the discussion about affordability, that's an important part of this too. So, you're moving in the right direction probably, but to say, you know, this is it, well, the zoning board can also turn around and say, okay, you know, that's it. You know, you want commercial, that's what you got.
Well, I guess I'd like to hear from the other board members, because, you know, the redesigning of the plan is a substantial undertaking, and it's a substantial effort, so the applicant would like to hear from the board members about whether they think 8 would be acceptable. If the board members don't think 8 is gonna be acceptable, then that's gonna change the applicant's decisions.
Okay. Other board members, because I just explained that there is no, you know, and that's also for the public. It's not as if that's the floor, you know. They say 8, but they can have commercial. Nothing says they're entitled to 8 apartments. They're entitled to build a commercial building there, so, okay.
Can I have a question?
Sure. Yeah.
Dan Luigi, where is the snow removal gonna go in this? Because the dumpster, I think, is in the corner. Where's the snow removal in this?
I mean, do you have snow snow storage?
Yeah, it's shown
on
on the
site?
plan.
Yeah, okay, he said it's on the plan, and this, I see green area, they can dump the snow on the green area, so.
It helps the board if all the neighbors decide that, for example, the neighbors express to go in favor of all commercial, it helps the board to take decisions,
No, that's not,
or none.
the neighbors don't, what's that?
We're suggesting, if it helps the board to take decision, let's say, if all the neighbors express they desire it to be commercial or a mix. Let's say all the neighbors decide want to be all commercial. Does it help the board to come up with a decision on that?
No, it's the applicant decides what they're gonna propose. But what I'm saying is, and it's also for you people to hear, it's not as if they're not entitled to have 10 units there. They're entitled to have a commercial building there. That's what they can have. I just want everybody to be clear on that. And, you know, this American's point is, well, maybe they'll come back and put a restaurant there or something. Okay? So, if they could do that tomorrow as of right.
Yeah, so they can do it if they want and are free to do it, but we are asking like, if we all the neighbors, all the residents of that area, come up with our decision that we like to get all commercial. Does it help you guys to come up with a decision there?
Yeah.
I don't know what you mean by a decision, but,
These guys, they want to be residential for sure because the mines are residential. We all know that. So let's say the facts.
right,
Commercial, nobody's using commercial anymore. I'm working from home.
okay, so,
Everyone is working from home today. So let's say we want all for this to be commercial, these guys, if they want, they can build commercial tomorrow. They can build a restaurant, if they want. Nobody's going to go there, we know, we know.
they can build a 3-story commercial building, that's,
But they're allowed to build as long as they follow the law.
right.
If we as all neighbors come in agreement, we don't want to be a mix, but just commercial, these guys can go ahead with commercial. Is the fair stand that the board can go ahead and say, guys, go with commercial?
We can say that at any point. But if all the neighbors want commercial there, that's fine, I think.
Yes, I'm asking, so if all the neighbors decide to go commercial, do you take that as a consideration?
We take everything neighbors say into consideration, yeah, so, okay. So you asked for other board members' input. Who wants to comment?
I'll comment. A reduction in residential units would certainly help alleviate some of the concerns I have over traffic.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Jane?
I guess I find that there's somewhat of an attitude here, and the applicant feeling as though he is going to present to us what they're gonna do. I find that somewhat offensive. And I felt it at a prior meeting, the same thing. This is zoned for business, and we could keep it that way, you could keep it that way, but I think the sense that I have is that I stand before you and I can do this. I'll do this for you if you can do that for me, and I just find that somewhat offensive. I'm sorry.
Well, I don't mean to offend you, obviously, but I think, in my mind, it's always a comparison, right? This land has been zoned business for forever. So in my mind, we're looking at the possibility of what could go there if it's all commercial versus this. And which is better for the neighborhood? And in my mind, and I live in a neighborhood very similar to this, school, traffic, business zone. Knowing what I know, I would pick this every day of the week. Because it fits in better with the neighborhood than 100% commercial use. So I think our point to you is that in comparison, that this is better than the other options for the site. And that given those options, that this is a good use for this site.
But that's your opinion,
Correct, that's my opinion.
and a multitude of the neighbors feel differently. And I'm not suggesting that because the neighbors feel it should be this, that we would go along with that either.
No, I
But
understand.
you're suggesting here very, very affirmatively that this is the best plan. And what I'm saying to you is you are not the only one. We have neighbors here who have some concerns.
Of course.
And as far as the traffic is concerned, I do respect you obviously had the traffic survey, but I'll be honest with you, you can make surveys or studies however you'd like them to come out. You can, and it's perfectly legitimate, because that's why they have these pilots they can plug in and they can do by computer this and that. But the reality is the neighbors are seeing a different story here. They're not looking at a computer model, it says, based on studies throughout the country where you have plugged this in and plugged that and plugged the other. These people are living it, and they're not seeing the same thing. And with all due respect, I think we ought to give some consideration to what they're saying, as opposed to just telling us this is what's the best thing. That's where I'm coming from.
I think the big point from the study is what the chair indicated, which is that there is obviously a lot of traffic in that intersection during peak hours, and the amount of traffic that this project will generate is small in comparison and will not significantly impact traffic flow in the area. That's the big
Yeah.
takeaway from the traffic study, You know, is it 5, is it 7, is it 3? You know, the reality is, compared to all the vehicles that roll through that intersection during peak morning and AM and afternoon hours, it's not a significant factor.
Other board members?
Oh, I thought you were next.
You probably have something.
No, you're next. I'll yield to you.
I know that they could just go in and do business now for all those different usage, but the reality is, a lot of those things that might be proposed under business wouldn't work there, in my mind. I mean, I don't even know if a restaurant could make it in that specific. I do like you said, John, the fact that they're coming back a little bit on the units. I do like the idea of an affordable unit in there. We're always trying to help on that side. I guess one question I had more on, say, the proposal right now was, how many 10 units, how many cars does that represent? Are you figuring 2 cars per unit?
Well, you don't figure it that way, you know,
Why not?
because everybody's different.
No,
right?
you're right.
Everybody's
Some
different.
could have 3.
Some
You
could
a
have 3, some could
parents
have
and a
2,
kid.
some could have 1.
So
So you
how
work,
do you figure it?
you projected based on averages, right?
So
'Cause-
what is the average for 10 unit?
Well, again, the
two-bedroom
traffic
apartments?
study's not projecting the number of vehicles, it's
I'm not
projecting.
worried about the traffic study.
number
I'm
of
just talking
trips.
about how many units, how many parking spaces for 10 apartments?
Well, the bylaw requires 2 spaces per unit.
Okay.
That's what we're providing. So there are 20 of
29
the
and
30,
2.
20 of the 31 are under the bylaw kind of designated for the residential use. The other 11 would be available to the commercial use. So any commercial use would have to basically fall within that number of parking spaces for the first floor, right? If a commercial use on the first floor required 20 parking spaces, it's not going to be allowed on the site because it doesn't meet the parking requirements of the bylaw. So only commercial uses under the bylaw as it's defined that can fit within 11 parking spaces would be able to go into the first floor. That's kind of the advantage of the mixed use, is it, it restricts the commercial activity and the number of commercial vehicles because it's dedicating a lot of the available parking for the residential use. So that's why you couldn't have like a Dunkin' Donuts there or something like that, because you don't have enough parking for it.
But with 10 units, you're thinking 20 spaces for the 10 units?
Correct.
Okay. And I'm glad there's 2 handicap parking. How do those fall? Do they fall more with the residential or more on the commercial side?
They would be available to both.
Okay.
2 is required by the state and the town
For
for the number of parking spaces. When you get up over 25 parking spaces, you have to provide 2.
all right, thank you.
So that's how that's driven.
Any other questions?
No.
Judy?
I agree with Jane about the attitude. The word bottom line to me sounds like blackmail. Like you look at this in one way, 8 is our bottom number. Everyone knows that the first floor commercial isn't a big priority. If you look at the complexes downtown, those developers are not in any big rush to fill their retail space. There's restaurant space available down there, there's retail space available, and they're in no hurry. And you know why they're in no hurry? And you know, Dan, why they're in no hurry. The developers themselves, the applicants know, because all the money's upstairs in the rentals. We all know that. Otherwise, you'd be beating down the doors to develop downtown Walpole. This, to me, has always been build it out to the max. And I don't blame the guys for doing that, because they're testing the waters, okay? So they've been testing the waters through all these hearings. They threw the little 1-unit affordable, which I thought was a nice offer, but now it's, maybe we won't do that now. So sour in my mouth, but that's another story. I think that you were making a good move, extending the olive branch by downsizing the footprint. I think that that's what you should consider. And I think you should look at your numbers again and come to a conclusion that 8 might not be your drop-dead point. Could be less. Could be less. And I'm also under the impression that as a condition, we could condition the units to be more, to be affordable. We could say we want 2 affordable units no matter what, as a condition. I think that we're allowed to do that.
You could do just about anything as a condition. So I always advocate for good communication in the public hearing because, if the board decides that they like the idea of a mixed use on this site and that, it's not a bad option for the development of the property, you just want to be careful that you don't condition something that maybe you think is harmless, but the applicant thinks all of a sudden, no way, that's not gonna fly, I'm going all commercial. If that's why I want to talk about these things in the public hearing. So, it's a special permit, you can throw any condition you want in it, but at the end of the day, if we settle on a design and layout and we want to get there, the conditions have to be acceptable to the applicant.
And I understand
And-
that.
And the board.
And the board.
To everyone, obviously. Yeah, to
And the
everyone.
neighbors that live there.
So,
The site's always been tight. My concern, and I'm gonna go to the fire truck turn, you change the turning radius, assuming that all the emergency vehicles are coming from Walpole Center direction, but you've got a hard 90 coming from Route 1. I'm not saying that should be changed, but there's not always gonna be a guarantee that the fire apparatus is, ambulances, now we're doing mutual aid. We could have an ambulance coming from Sharon that might not make that turn, coming from Route 1. The left side, and again, it's probably a site plan thing, you're at, 8 feet?
On the other
On-
side, they're coming from the other lane. They're not coming around.
Okay, all right, that's
Right,
a
so
good
this turning
explanation.
movement is like this, it's not dependent on this curve.
Okay.
This is rounded out for this turning movement.
Okay, understood. Go into the left side of your building where it abuts the other apartments. The fire chief's talking about fire lanes. You're 8 feet to the property line, to the apartments.
Right.
There's,
Zoning bylaw allows 6.
understood, but he's got concerns with fire lanes. And so what I see there is, they only have fire lanes on 2 out of the 3 sides of the
Well,
building.
the fire lanes are the paved surfaces, they're not the landscape
Okay.
areas. But we've spoken with the fire department about this.
Okay. Well, I'll go back to the attitude. I mean, I think it's,
And I'll
Um,
just throw this out there for you. We live in very unique times right now.
Mr. Chairman, I was speaking.
Oh, sorry, thought you were done.
Thank you. As I said, you're putting 5 pounds of sugar in a 4-pound bag, and it's always been that way. But a little give and take along the way, but now we're told bottom line. So as John said, there's no bottom line. So I think you need to go back to the drawing board and revisit, look a little harder. I'm finished.
All set?
Mm-hmm.
So the applicant is offering a 20% reduction here, which I think is a significant reduction. I think it's a very significant reduction. But I would, as I was saying, we live in very strange and unique times right now where commercial uses are struggling, but that is unique to this time. That is not going to be always. So, even if, let's say the board denies this and the applicant waits 2 years to propose a commercial use, we're gonna be living in entirely different times in 2 years from now, and who knows what could be there. Which, it brings me back to my point, which is, in the grand scheme of things, I think this is a good use for this property on a business zone piece of land.
okay, so, I'd agree. This is a good use, commercial on the first floor, some residential on the second floor. I think what you need to do is look at the scale of it, and I think that's what you've heard from everybody on the zoning board. You wanted to know, besides where I was coming from, you wanted to know what the other board members were coming at. And I think what you've heard is, the scale of the project, for where it is and what it's surrounded by, might be worth looking at as far as basically the scale. You scale it back, you can have more space, so you're not gonna be as constricted on the parking. Traffic, you know, or at least volume in and out is going to be reduced. So those are things that, if you wanted some direction from the board going forward, that's really what it should come down to, is the scale of the project. At least, am I speaking for myself, or is that's what everybody said? Drew, you talked traffic, and that all ties in. So I think that's the way you should be looking at it. Mr. Hamilton?
Bill Hamilton. I have a little concern about Washington Street, and it's not a traffic study, it's a capacity for the sewer. The preserve was approved and hooks up at South Street to the Washington Street sewer, and 55 Summer Street is gonna hook up to the Washington Street sewer. So I think a big concern is capacity study of the Washington Street sewer, because the people who designed that didn't anticipate the build-out that is starting to occur with the preserve and 55 Summer Street, and now this business district where they're building out more than anyone anticipated when they did the sewer. And my concern is, if we have surcharging, and I witnessed surcharging, I worked for municipal consultants who designed water and sewer projects. And I actually climbed into a sewer hole to put the devices in to measure the surcharging. And it's serious. And I've seen where sewer covers are lifted up from the surcharging and the raw sewage flows in the street. If that happens above or at South Street, that could have a big impact on the School Meadowbrook well field. And we could have raw sewage going into that area. That's a serious problem, and I know you guys haven't been given.
No, we can do is we can get a statement from the sewer and water department if they see that, you know, the units and commercial at this site would affect the flow of sewer. I think that's an appropriate question, and we can get a letter from them saying if they have your concerns.
Yes, now, the other thing is, does the ZBA have the ability to allow, have a project, a 40B hook up to a sewer? I mean, you guys have a lot of power with 40Bs.
This isn't a 40B.
No, I know that,
So,
We're not gonna go.
but if you don't have that power, and you shouldn't have it here, so you're right,
So-
you need to have a letter from the sewer and water.
right, and I just wrote it, I just took your point. Let's find out if there's any concerns at this location about, you know, the number of units that are being proposed and commercial at this site, what it would do to the sewer.
And the
I agree with you.
capacity of what's, yes.
Yes.
And I can't find where the sewer and water voted to approve the hookup of the preserve. That's why I
That's
asked the question.
not what's before the zoning board right now.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments? So. Yes, Mr. O'Leary, good evening.
Some practical experience. Robert O'Leary, Washington Street, about 1,000 feet south. I've been in there probably more than anybody in the room, quite often, because I knew the previous owner. And when I came down from Route 1, it was hit or miss taking a left to get into the driveway. And I wasn't gonna just stop and wait to get in, which I could have done, but I wouldn't do that. As far as taking a left-hand turn, you just can't do it in traffic. To go out of there, to go toward the center of town, you just can't do it safely in traffic. So you're forced to take a right. And in my case, I can make the whole swing around to come back to my house. But if you do the turnaround in roadways, that also is not safe. So, and that's just one person living there. So it's not busy, and you have the same problem whether it's 1 or 10. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks. So, do you want to come up with a revised plan, or what's your thoughts moving forward?
Yeah, we'd like to continue it for 1 month.
Okay.
I don't know what that day is. That the first?
Oh, here we go. Thank you. That puts us to June 1st.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'd like to do that, please.
Okay. And we can, at the request of the applicant, we would continue this hearing until June 1st at 7 o'clock here at Town Hall. Could I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Jane, second by Tim. Any further discussion on continuing the hearing? Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, abstained, so carried. All right,
Thank you.
okay. Okay, next is gonna be Burns Ave. I see a couple people just stepped out. Thank you.
Good night. Can we take a minute, John?
Yeah,
Please.
why don't we take, 1 minute or 5? And 5, okay. 5 minutes. Okay, it's 9:12 and we're back in session. Just had to take a break. So the next case we have tonight is case number 2021, Wall Street Development Corporation, 48 Burns Ave. This is on remand from the Housing Appeals Committee. It's a request for a project change, amendment to a comprehensive permit under Mass General Laws 40B. And this amendment is to include Brook Lane and 40 units in 8 buildings. And that's what we had before us, and that's what we were planning to discuss this evening.
Mr. Chairman?
That's what we have right now. Go ahead.
I'll be recusing myself as a direct abutter to the applicant.
Okay. So, at this point, we do not have the applicant here. The applicant was here earlier, but left. And we do have town council with us, so town council, this is a remand on a modification. At this point, I think we need to consider closing the case because we haven't had any information, and we also have a timeline running out, which we had until May 18th to conclude the hearings on this, and we can't do that at this point. So.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board, George Pucci from KP Law. You'll recall at the last hearing session, there were going to be some revised plans submitted in accordance with the peer reviewer's recommendation. That there were buildings being moved, and you needed to see the plans that you're actually acting on the modification. And those have not been submitted. And apparently the applicant notified Patrick about some type of alternate plan, but you certainly don't have anything before you on that tonight. You are running out of time to close the public hearing. You have 40 days to issue a decision following the close of the public hearing, so you would have time to have deliberations and talk about the decision on the modification if you were to close tonight. I don't see any option other than to recommend closing the hearing tonight, because you're gonna need to do that within the deadline. If you close the public hearing tonight, you would have 40 days to deliberate and issue a decision. I should note the applicant left. I was advised by Patrick, the applicant left tonight because it was taking too long or something. I don't know the reason he had to leave, but he emailed an offer of continuing the hearing to May 18 and a decision deadline of, I think, June 2. But that's less of a right than you have now. That's cutting off your 40 days to issue the decision following close of the public hearing. So I would recommend against accepting that offer because it puts you in a disadvantage in terms of the procedure for issuing a decision. So it's unfortunate, but I don't think you have much of an option other than to close the hearing tonight and schedule deliberations on a decision for a subsequent date certain.
Okay, and I think we could have deliberations on May 25th to discuss where we are, because we just don't have the information from the applicant. The applicant had time to give us revised plans, and we haven't received anything on that. So, at the recommendation of town council, first off, are there any neighbors? I know you've been here tonight with us. Do you have any questions or comments, or any even procedural questions that we can answer? Okay. Ladies, yes, ma'am.
You're the one that really doesn't
Just-
do anything, okay?
Just come forward, come forward, please.
Joyce Sheehan, Burns Ave. So because you don't have any updated information, if you close today, what are you making a decision on in 40 days?
That's the problem. So we don't have any information, and we can't make a good decision.
Okay, so I'm understanding it correctly?
Yeah.
Okay,
So-
you wouldn't go back to what you had, like, at the last meeting, because he said he was gonna update you with
No,
something?
because we know that the plans that were submitted cannot be built.
Okay, okay.
Those plans cannot be built as shown. I'm correct, right? I mean,
We asked for subsequent revisions to the plan that was
Yep.
provided last meeting. We did not receive those revisions, so the only information that the board has to work with are the previous revisions, which were inadequate in terms of having certain revisions that were recommended by town engineering, other town staff, as
Okay,
well as the
right.
peer review agent, so.
Okay, thank you.
And we're also dealing with a regulatory timeframe that makes it difficult for the board to act on something of that nature right now.
Yes, Jack.
Jack Conroy, abutter 48 Burns, and I could be long-winded, but one comment, close it.
Okay. Yes, Mrs. Campbell, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you. Kathy Campbell, 35 Burns Avenue. In terms of the HAC remanding back to the zoning board of appeals to consider or reconsider everything, and I understand that there are no revised plans. Should the board deny what's in front of them, does he still have an option to go back to the would he still be able to appeal with the HAC again?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, and so I'll answer that quickly as yes, and I'll just confer town council
I
that
mean, they've specifically retained jurisdiction. He doesn't even have to even file a new appeal. They've retained jurisdiction until your process is completed on the modification proposal.
And at this point, the modification, we don't have the information we need to make the modification, to even
Make a decision.
make a decision, yeah.
I mean, you're gonna have to deliberate on that. You'll have to look at the state of the record and decide what you wanna do. If you wanna try to condition it, if you wanna just deny it for, and spell out the reasons that you have to deny it. But there are a couple of options available on it, but you're really gonna have to deliberate on it when you figure out the state of the record.
But by closing the hearing tonight, which has been recommended by town council, that would cut off any discussion. That's why I want to make sure everybody had a chance to question or even ask procedural questions. And then from there, then we would have a meeting where we actually deliberate and we talk about, what we would approve or what we would not approve or anything like that. Okay.
So let me try to, that answered my question, but now hearing Mr. Bucci say something, I just want to make sure I understand something. I understand that. You deliberate and you make your decision, he appeals with the HAC, whatever that decision may be. Is there an opportunity for HAC to say they're no longer interested in remanding back to Walpole zoning to try it again and again and again, and could they take this project upon themselves and just work with the applicant at that point? I mean, is zoning board out of it after the second appeal, or does it just continue this sort of legal process where he appeals, they remand back, you try to do what you can do? I'm just concerned about the cycle and what the legal rights of Walpole zoning board has over remanding back to the HAC, and how many times can we do that before they say, we're just gonna take this project and manage it from the mass housing level?
Great question. And
I mean, if you want an answer to it, I've said this many times, sometimes people misconstrue it as, I'm trying to convince a board to bow down to a 40B developer, but the risk is always in the fact of if you don't have an ironclad decision going into the HAC appeal, you are then turning the HAC into your local permitting authority, because they're not gonna deliberate on it the way the board does, and they're not gonna examine it the way the board does. They are going to, in the event they find in favor of a developer, they will give just very bare bones boilerplate conditions that do not protect local needs adequately. So it's always best to try to keep it in the board's jurisdiction to impose conditions on the project. So every time it goes back to the HAC, you do have the risk that they're gonna turn around and say, I overturned the board, I am remanding it to you to issue the permit with the following 5 conditions, and they're always the same, subject to state law and things that don't protect local interests. So that would then be subject to further appeal to the Superior Court if the board were to appeal that decision. But again, it's always the risk, so it's best to try to keep it here to the extent you can. In this case, you're running out of time. So, and the applicant was supposed to submit the stuff by tonight, so you could deliberate on it, and he didn't, and it is what it is. So I don't see any, despite the risk with HAC, I don't see really any option other than closing the hearing. You don't want to have a constructive approval, that's for sure.
Right.
And when he says constructive approval, that just means that we didn't act in a timely manner and
Correct.
it gets approved, so.
And there's always a risk as well at the HAC that a different project ends up being proposed there. And they act on it. They find that it's not a substantial change and that they can keep jurisdiction. And that happens, and they do it. And they do it over zoning board's objections, including one that I have in litigation right now. So that's a risk too, that the applicant is purposely not providing you the information on the modified plan, and he intends to present something else at HAC. And if that happens, we'll have to deal with that then, and we'll see if it's a substantial change, that we would file a motion to remand to the board, but it's never a slam dunk with HAC about, how they roll, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Does that answer your questions
Yep, that-
procedurally? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting to tell you what to do, I just procedurally, I wanted to understand if it went back to the HAC, if it's, again, running the same risk that it went the first time, I understand that.
Yep, and we haven't, this is unusual. This isn't the way it normally operates.
Right.
So I'll just say that. Okay.
And for the record, with all due respect, I believe the board asked for all of that information a week in advance of this meeting from Mr. Petrosi, not just tonight, so I've actually been trying to follow up as well.
Yep, no, it was asked because it also had to
Correct.
have the peer reviewer take a look
Correct.
at it. So, yeah, it hasn't happened.
Right.
And it leaves the board in a very difficult position, and really a position where we have to, in this case tonight, I think, close the hearing, so.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Mr. Chairman, it feels like the applicant's running the clock out.
Okay.
I have
Thank
to
you
say
very
it.
much.
Sure.
Jones Street, 29 Burns Ave. I just, now, he said he was gonna,
Who's he?
Lou Petrosi. Last time we were here, I thought he was gonna take a building away. Like, if you don't have a plan to even discuss anything about, what are you gonna be discussing?
That's the point.
That's the problem.
That's the
So
point.
you're just gonna go with what he said last time. He said he may remove a building. You guys said you want a new site plan. Was that
Right.
correct?
Yes, and
So my question, and I guess, is, are you gonna go with just what he said verbally to you?
No. No,
I never
what we
thought
go
about
with
downtown
is
unless
what's
he
been
goes
submitted
down,
to the
so that's
board,
different. He's doing
and that's the only thing that we can go with. And those are the plans from months ago.
February 23rd.
Yeah, because wasn't one building on top of conservation land
Yeah,
or
it
something?
was we knew that building could not be built as shown in the plan.
Right.
But that's the plan that we have before us, and he hasn't provided us with anything new.
So do you just X that building
No.
off?
Sure, so the plan that you are referencing, that was the first plan that the board discussed. After discussion when we had our peer review agent from Tetra Tech in to review that plan, and noted that plan could not be built from DEP's superseding order of conditions. The applicant did provide a revision to that plan, for which that was also reviewed by town staff and the peer review agent. And that is the plan from, I believe, February 23rd of 2022. That's the latest plan that this board has to work with. So any subsequent revisions to that that were supposed to be available for this meeting tonight, the board does not have them to go off of anything other than the previously submitted plan, as well as the previously submitted review letters from town staff and the peer review agent.
Okay, so you're just going to take that last plan and then write down what you feel he needs to fix, or what he can or cannot do from that last plan?
Depending if possible. So, I mean, obviously, the decision is up to the board.
Right, okay.
Okay.
He's got something to say.
Sure, Mr. O'Leary, good evening.
I always have something. Robert O'Leary, Washington Street. Is this board going to allow any disturbances, or had they planned on any disturbances within the buffer around the project? Is there a buffer?
There is a buffer, and there was allowed to be disturbances, but not in the, no, actually, the superseding order of conditions dealt with that.
Yeah, so the applicant cannot build in the 25-foot new build zone from the wetlands. However, they have to just comply with DEP's superseding order of conditions. So in terms of our local regulation, we did have specific conditions that were within the original comprehensive permit that the board wanted to uphold from Conservation Commission's order of conditions. However, what we're looking at now, it has to comply with DEP's.
Right.
So that's kind of,
I was speaking more
Fail-safe.
generally about more than one building on a lot, and we had a buffer zone relating to that.
Well, no, because it's 40B, that, the one building per lot is, that's out the window.
well, Mr. Chair.
There's no
Yeah, go
buffer.
ahead, Patrick.
I was just gonna say, so that would be something that the applicant would have had to ask for within the waivers. So the last submitted revision of his waiver list is, again, if the board sees fit, that's what the board has to go off of in terms of whether they wish to approve or deny any of the waivers that he
My
requested.
question revolves around 5G2, the first sentence, where it indicates that you, acting as planning board under site plan, would have to allow a disturbance within any buffer. So I guess I was questioning whether you were planning on allowing that with a common driveway. So,
In the wetland buffer?
No.
What
Just-
buffer?
well, there's generally a buffer around all property, especially, like I just said, more than one building on a lot. It's the law in our books. So that's why I asked, are you considering a buffer around the property as we have in our bylaws? Or is that something that is
So,
disregarded?
If you're referring to setbacks, are you referring to, because a buffer wouldn't be applicable
Yeah.
in this.
Wetlands, right.
Well, the wetlands buffer, you're not referring to the wetlands buffer, you're referring to.
No, there's a buffer zone, 64A.
Yeah, so the applicant has to request a waiver from that, so offhand, we'd have to look through the waiver sheet.
So that's why I asked, has the board allowed any disturbances, or will they allow any disturbances within that buffer?
It's up to the board, if it's within the waivers, they can choose
Because
whether they wish to deny or
5G2
accept.
seems to indicate you have to allow it, otherwise they can't do it.
Okay.
Great.
We'll take a look at the buffers.
Thank you.
If you end up denying it, you're not gonna be allowing anything.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Sure.
Okay. Okay, so at this time, could I have a motion to close case number 20-21?
So move.
Moved by Drew,
Second?
second by Tim. Okay, any, is that the way it, yeah,
I would
that was a
say-
motion to close the public hearing?
close the public hearing?
Should be, in this case, are we having 5 original board members vote on this, or would they have to close that hearing as well?
No, you can vote with
You can
who's
vote to-
here.
okay.
Yeah, they'll waive in.
We're voting for the decision.
Yeah.
Yep, all right.
You have a quorum here on
We
the
have a quorum.
members, yeah.
So, we have a motion made to close the hearing. It's been seconded. Any further discussion? And this is just to close the hearing. Okay. All those in favor of closing the hearing, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, so carried. Okay. So the hearing is closed. Now what I'd like to do is schedule deliberations for May 25th at 7 o'clock. Can we, is that okay with board members? Okay. And for the public, the hearing is closed, so you're welcome to come. It'll be a public hearing, but we won't be taking any information at that point. Okay. So, do I need a motion for deliberations?
Yeah,
Okay.
I would schedule it.
Okay. How about a motion for deliberations for the Wall Street Development Corporation, 48 Burns Ave, for deliberation on May 25th?
Motion.
Okay, motion made by Tim,
Second.
second by Jane. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, so carried. Okay. So we'll have deliberations on the 25th. Okay. So that concludes the public hearing part of tonight's meeting. Next thing we have is signing a A&R for the comprehensive permit. So, thank you, everybody. Okay. So, Patrick, do you have those Mylars?
Yes.
George, you feel we're okay?
So this is something that Attorney Questle had led the board on. I was just
Okay.
bringing this up to George.
Okay.
Essentially, this was as a result of the comprehensive permit for the Summer Street project.
So, at our last meeting, there was a question about signing an A&R and whether it was appropriate for a zoning board to sign it. It's an A&R for the 40B. We went back to town council, you all saw that letter. She said that it is appropriate, and when we even questioned, should it be called an A&R? I thought it wasn't necessary to call it an A&R, but she said, yes, it is an A&R for this. So, did you all see that response from Attorney Amy Questle? So at this point, we have the Mylars, and do we need to vote on signing? I forget.
Did you take a motion to sign at the close of the hearing, or did you have to?
I don't know what the procedure is. There's a hearing open on it?
No, there's no hearing, sorry. Motion to
Yeah.
close
Yeah.
at tonight's meeting.
It's
Motion
closed.
to sign, yes.
It's a procedural thing in the decision with the South
Yes,
Walpole
no,
project.
I think you're better off just taking a motion to sign it in accordance with town council's recommendation. She made that recommendation, sign the A&R plan. Maybe just make a simple motion, move to sign the A&R plan as recommended by council.
Okay.
Voted, just to be on the safe side.
Okay. Still concerns?
Yes, because
Okay.
I'm concerned that an A&R came in without a timestamp, without a fee, with all these things that.
And we talked about the fee.
We talked about this
We
last
talked about the
time.
fee.
I understand, but rules are for everyone. That's all I have to say.
Okay.
I'm a-
But as far as the fee, and
I get the
believe
fee.
me, this is outside
I
my
shouldn't have
comfort
said fee.
zone.
I know.
But there is no fee because it was all part of the comprehensive permit process,
Right.
and they did pay a fee for that.
Right. But like I
So,
s-
at the recommendation of town council, and when I say town council, I don't mean George, I mean Amy Questle, she's provided us with a memo stating that it is appropriate for the zoning board to sign the A&R. Could I have a motion to sign the A&R?
So move.
Okay, moved by Drew. Somebody want to second it? Second by Tim. Any further discussion? And your concerns are noted, and you don't have to sign it if you don't want to.
I don't think I should
Jordan,
sign it. I think it
Mr.
should be the
Chair.
right regular members.
Yeah, so in this case, because we're not acting on a special permit, it would be only the three full-time
three-
members that would
three
vote
regular
on
members.
any motion.
Okay.
Waiting to sign as well.
Okay, so, actually,
Tim?
Tim can't make the motion, so, Drew, you made the
I motion.
he made the motion.
All right, I'll second.
Jane seconds it.
Mr. Chairman, would you like us to vote?
No.
Okay.
No, we
Just
can
wanna
vote
be
with,
clear,
yeah,
'cause
we can vote with
I
three
would be
members.
voting no, but, okay, you
So,
guys are good.
It'll be the three regular members that
Thank
are
you.
voting. Okay. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? So carried. Okay, and the three members can sign it.
I'll Also with council.
All set with town council. Thank you, George.
You're welcome, thank you.
We'll be in contact.
Yeah.
This was unusual. Okay. Next on the, is minutes, minutes to review. Do we have the minutes?
6th and 20th, actually.
Are they in the folder?
You know, I saw that, I read them in the folder.
Thank you.
Take it easy, George.
See you, George.
Good night, George. Good night, George.
Hey, John's. Did you give me John's folder? Take that.
So one thing on the minutes of April 6th, in the first page where it says, Ms. Conroy stated she was uncomfortable of how this was not on the agenda, blah, blah. She also stated that it was a violation of the open meeting law, and I want that in there.
Thank you, John, because I was going to ask for that to be added.
Okay. Anybody have any other comments on the April 6th?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Drew assigned me to vote on the Deborah Drive case, so should that indicate somewhere? Because all of a sudden I bounce into votes. I'm not sure where it should fit.
Deborah Drive.
Could we number these pages? I know they come stapled, but I tear mine apart sometimes.
So it's sometimes difficult because the way you print them out, they'll,
Oh, okay, well,
So-
whatever, okay.
and they're not that long, so.
I think it was,
It's,
he didn't do it at the start of the case, I don't believe, but.
Am I crazy in thinking that on page 5 of 7, 6, it says Delaney identified the voting members? Anderson, Fitzgerald, himself, Coffey, and Conroy?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see that.
Okay.
Oh, okay, missed it, sorry. Thank you.
anything else on the minutes of the April 6th? And the next one, you'll notice that the times have been added in, so I think that was helpful. We had a lot of discussion about the A and R on that, so. Besides my one addition about the comment on June 6th, which is right here. Anybody have anything else on, not June, April 6th or April 20th? How about a motion to approve both minutes as amended?
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
so moved by Jane, second by Drew. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstained, so carried. Okay, so our next meetings are coming up. It's on the agenda.
I do have one question
Yes.
about this.
Yeah.
Chairman, this was provided in our packet,
It was just as a heads up of what's ongoing.
but on May 25th, we're hearing a Darwin Lane case, but we don't actually have a scheduled meeting for.
So, yeah, so I'll address that. So, when we first had met regarding the Darwin Lane application, there was some indication that if this could be coming back to us at a certain time frame. So, the applicant for this case feels that the town is no longer in safe harbor. That's his opinion on the matter. So, when this application came in and was stamped, we have to schedule in order to be compliant with the regulatory time frame. So I reached out to the chairman to obviously notify him that this situation had arisen. And so the 25th keeps us in compliance with 30 days of opening a public hearing from the date it was clocked in with the clerk.
So that's why, do you understand, it's.
I get
yeah,
exactly
yeah.
why, but I guess if we weren't planning on meeting for deliberating for Burns Ave, why should we be why not meet on a regularly scheduled
Because
night?
by the time when it was applied for, you have to have 2 weeks of advertisement for it, and we were cutting it too close. It wouldn't have fit with our regular schedule.
And
Okay.
I was just
May
saying,
18th.
yeah,
But we couldn't get it advertised, what
we
was it?
couldn't get it, so basically,
Has to be
change
advertised.
newspaper advertisement, the advertisement for the local, a paper of local circulation is the Hometown Weekly. They are published on a Thursday, so from the date we got it in, from the date that we could submit to advertise, we had to be compliant with opening the case within 14 days from the date the first application was issued.
Okay.
So, that's why we.
I just don't wanna be making any special considerations for that.
No.
No,
it-
no,
it-
it's,
and
it's
for both,
truly regulatory.
Gotcha,
Yeah.
nope, that's all.
for
Yeah.
both of those, I think, you know, I would hate to have the board meet on a date that is not their regular meeting schedule, but it's more of, we're kind of have to adhere to the regulatory timeframe.
Thank you.
Everything for the case is on the 40B page, everything he submitted to.
Did you have a question?
I'll save it.
Okay.
I'll save it.
Okay. Okay. Anything else? Interesting night, so let's, we have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Judy,
Second.
second by Jane. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Good night, everybody.